It's not just marijuana. The latest debate among conservatives is whether or not to ban another addictive drug, pornography. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Back in December, conservative voices on Twitter had a heated debate over whether or not the government should get involved in the fight against pornography, particularly because of how it impacts kids. Writers like Catholic Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire made the case that porn's no longer an issue of private morality, if it ever was. Today, porn's a public health crisis. Mountains of evidence reveal not only its addictive power, but also its devastating consequences for women and children. Walsh argued that free market solutions have been exhausted, and so banning pornography and prosecuting those who distribute it is the only way to contain this scourge on our families and society. Others argued for at least increased governmental regulation. Some libertarians push back, insisting that although porn's harmful, the government should not regulate what consenting adults look at on their computers or phones. As one commentator memorably put it, social conservatives need to realize we can handle pornography without turning America into a Christian version of Saudi Arabia. Really? How's handling it going so far? As much as that comment makes me want to scream, at least a long overdue debate is happening. So let's have it. First, the idea that the government addressing something so dangerous to the public, especially children, is somehow akin to theocratic tyranny is, to put it mildly, ridiculous. Even us limited government folks think government has a role to protect citizens. This clearly falls into that category. Second, the idea that pornography falls under free speech protections is also ridiculous. I mean, it's a stretch to consider the selling of digital flesh as a political or artistic endeavor worthy of protection. But the dissemination of the depraved abuse of real-life human beings, which is what so much porn is today, no way. Third, bondage to pornography isn't an expression of freedom, especially when victims are children. Porn is predatory. Because it is unregulated, it assaults citizens not looking for it. Even worse, kids are being targeted at shockingly early ages. Studies say the average age of first exposure is 11. For many, it's as young as 5. That's why I was so grateful to learn of a letter by Princeton University's Robbie George, considered to be one of America's foremost conservative intellectuals, to U.S. Attorney General William Barr, pleading with him to take action against internet pornography. Dr. George was a close friend of Chuck Colson's and is the recipient of the 2015 William Wilberforce Award. In his letter to Barr, excerpted at the Daily Wire, George points out that laws already on the books forbid the distribution of obscenity, especially to minors. Now, if there's any question whether or not modern-day porn counts as obscenity, well, let's just say the days of Playboy magazine at gas stations are long gone. George unflinchingly describes in his letter the dark, depraved world of increasingly brutal, abusive, and twisted content, bluntly concluding, a 13-year-old with a smartphone now has unlimited access to his own personal theater of sexual horrors. Because so-called adult entertainment targets those who aren't adults, Dr. George believes that existing laws can at least curb the madness. Still, as he described in his interview with me that you can hear on today's Breakpoint podcast episode, it's only a start. Much more will be required. In the letter, Dr. George also asked Attorney General Barr to clarify what types of pornography fall under the legal definition of obscenity and what his Department of Justice is doing to prosecute violators. Now, thankfully, the request is not likely to fall on deaf ears, as it probably would have under previous administrations. Attorney General Barr is a devout Catholic and an outspoken critic of the secular view of freedom. In fact, in a tremendous speech on religious liberty given at Notre Dame Law School, Barr condemned the, quote, unbridled pursuit of personal appetites at the expense of the common good. Well, I'm eager to hear Barr's response. If any U.S. Attorney General in my lifetime thus far is likely to do something about the porn epidemic, it's him. And if anyone is likely to get a reply to a request, it's Dr. George. In our interview on the Breakpoint podcast, Dr. Robert George passionately describes why he wrote this letter to the Attorney General, the possibility of existing laws curbing the epidemic, and how you can stand with him in fighting this evil that enslaves millions and actively preys on children. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.